today I want to talk about the principle of don't be good, be better. Now this is all about aspiration, what we focus on at work, and whether we take a long-term view or a short-term view. It's really easy to get sucked into short-term priorities. It happens every single day, particularly if we're the person who people always look to solve their problems. If we're the person who somebody always comes to resolve an issue, we've always got to have the answer. So don't be good, get better is about raising our head and saying, let's focus on the long term. In essence, this means having a mindset which focuses on improving rather than just proving. If we're only interested in being good, we're just all about task accomplishment rather than understanding and learning. It means that we're probably more comfortable with a culture of compliance. I've done things right, more than excellence, which is to do the right thing. Now, those two things aren't mutually exclusive. You can be excellent and still meet all the requirements of compliance. But if you only focus on compliance, we believe that it's hard to achieve excellence. You'll focus on just getting the task done rather than thinking about how do we bring people forward. There'll be a tendency towards ensuring that you can demonstrate that the process has been followed rather than focusing on what's the outcome that we're actually trying to achieve here. It'll be preferable to remain with the status quo rather than to create an environment in which people feel comfortable to innovate. And the emphasis will all be about what can we do and deliver tomorrow rather than thinking about what do we really want to do on the long-term basis. At the heart of this is the question as to whether we're focused on just avoiding making mistakes or whether we create an environment in which we learn. Now again, the two things are not mutually exclusive. And if you create an environment where we invite people to learn from their mistakes, it doesn't mean to say that we're just tolerating mistakes being made all the time. But in a world in which we're just trying to avoid making mistakes all the time, we narrow our horizons. And in doing so, we probably make ourselves more vulnerable to making mistakes. We have a bias for errors. And in an environment in which we want to learn and we want to improve, then firstly, when things do go wrong, and they do go wrong, we should be comfortable to understand why has this happened. If we have a culture of learning, it means that people are more likely to speak up and say, well, this is what happened, this was the cause of it, and this is what we could do differently. If we have a culture which is all about avoiding errors, then will people speak up? Will they find it easier to blame the process, blame somebody else, certainly not reflect on their contribution? In the original first shuttle disaster, the culture of NASA was failure is not an option. And one of the consequences of that is that people didn't feel comfortable in speaking up and they weren't heard. The consequences clearly were catastrophic. And there was an organisation in which failure was not an option effectively means we cannot make any mistakes. If the focus is on how do we achieve excellence, the mindset becomes what can we learn? What do we know what's happening at the moment? How do we encourage people to share that? The other challenge is that when we focus on the short term and it's just all about delivering the results, it becomes so much easier for us to just keep control. After all, we know ourselves best and we'd rather rely on doing something ourselves rather than giving up responsibility and relying on somebody else. So a short-term culture means that it's much more likely that we just keep control of all of the tasks that we're currently doing. And therefore we get into an ever-decreasing circle and cycle in which our workload increases, the pressure increases, because we can't give up because we're so focused on delivering the short-term result. So what's the role of a leader in creating an organisation which is focused on being better rather than just being good? I think at the heart of this is a mindset of curiosity, a thirst to understand, okay, how could we do this better? What's happening at the moment? What can we learn from this, rather than just settling for the status quo? In order to be curious, you've got to create an environment in which you make people feel comfortable to speak up. You make people feel that it's worth them speaking up. You make them feel that they can say and share their perspective without fear of reprisal or ridicule. It's only by doing that that we can create a culture of continuous learning and continuous improvement. Nobody gets anywhere by standing still. And so a complacency and a satisfaction with, well, we've simply completed the task, won't do in the long term. An attitude which is, I've complied with what's asked of me, we've done what was required of our team, won't sustain over time. Instead, we need to be focused on what are we trying to achieve in the long term? What have we learnt from our most recent experience? How do we get better? How do we invite people to share their perspective in a way which feels comfortable and safe? A lot of the role of leaders and managers over the course of the last 100 years has focused on reducing variability, making things more efficient and more effective. But we face different challenges now. We have competition that can replicate what we do. We have customers with a louder voice and more choice. So it's really important that we create an environment which just doesn't stand still and that explores the different opportunities and different possibilities of how we can operate and how we can work. So on the one hand, reducing variability might be good in terms of efficiency, but that mindset will restrict our ability to create new ideas and to innovate. And in the end, innovation is going to be at the heart of the success of organisations in the future. In today's economy, it's difficult for us to compete on price. Other countries can do the same thing as us at a lower and cheaper rate. We have to compete on the quality of our ideas and the quality of our thought. But that means that thought and thinking needs to move beyond people just in the research and development department or at the top of the organisation. We have to invite thinking from across the whole team. That means an environment in which we encourage people to learn. We encourage a culture of continuous improvement, where, yes, we value reduced variability where it creates a more efficient process. But we also embrace variability of thought, because it's only by drawing in that wider perspective, the different thoughts and perspectives that people have, that will create an environment of genuine innovation. Innovation which comes from the bottom up in an organisation, innovation that comes from those people who are closest to the customer, innovation that comes from the people who are doing the job on a day-to-day basis. That's what being better, not just being good, is all about.